Thank you very much, Andy. I'm Jim Julius. I'm pleased to be presenting today with Kelly Bowers, and I'll let Kelly introduce herself and her background at this time.
Hello, I'm Kelly Bowers. I'm your local franchise consultant with a company called FranNet. Basically, I help people who are interested in business ownership explore their options. I spent most of my career in the training and recruiting industries in both the public and the private sector, where I help small and medium-sized businesses develop, execute training, recruiting, and onboarding plans. And I'm thrilled to be with you today.
Thank you, Kelly. Jim Julius. I spent a good part early in my career of consulting with boards of directors in terms of hiring CEOs and board members, board chairmen. Spent a little time working with in the selection testing business, where we with a company called Gallup, where we help companies choose the right employees. I later became a vice president of human resources for a NASDAQ listed company. And then after that, I started 7 companies, which is how I got involved with SCORE in terms of being a SCORE mentor. So we want to welcome you all today, and we'll see if we can help answer some questions about why you don't have a whole lobby full of candidates applying for your jobs. Kelly. So basically, the agenda today is we're going to define the problem. We're going to talk a little bit about traditional recruiting methods, some non-traditional recruiting methods, and then, of course, we'll take your questions and have a summary at the end. Okay. All right. Why are there no candidates, and where are the applicants? Kelly? All right, so one of the things we're talking about is that last week, 2 weekends ago, the Denver International Airport held a job fair. They've done this in the past, and they get 5,000 people attending these job fairs. They have 1,000 jobs open right now. Last month, they had only 150 people attend the job fair. So yeah, we need to know where all these candidates are for these jobs that are available. 72% of the workers who earn under $30,000 a year plan to look for a new job in the coming year. Okay, 44% earn 80,000 and above also plan to look for a new job. We're going to be talking right now a little bit about the Great Resignation. In August of 2021, 4.4 million people resigned. We're going to give you some insights as to maybe why that is, and help explain maybe why there isn't an abundance of candidates for the open jobs. All right, Kelly? All right, so it's also called the era of labor scarcity. There are 9.5 million unemployed workers looking for work. These are probably 6-week-old, 2-month-old statistics, so they could have changed a little bit. There are 9.2 million open jobs. So you do the math, hey, what's the problem? There's same amount of people looking for jobs that are open jobs, should fit together. Well, that's not exactly how it works, because 60% of the employers say they can't find applicants to match the skills they're looking for. Well, 30% of the employees say they can't find jobs that fit their skills. If you ask the unemployed why, 47% of them will say, why are you still unemployed? I haven't heard back from the jobs that I've applied for. So the problem is one of the problems is the big mismatch of available workers, available jobs, and putting them together. That's not a new problem, but that's part of the explanation as to why we have this gap in people looking for work and people who can't find jobs and have lots of jobs to look at. So, all right, Kelly. So what are the reasons for, I'm going to look at 3 reasons basically for the Great Resignation. The one is they pass a sign on the way home from work, not one, but probably 10 signs on the way home from work that says, we're hiring, come on in, we're looking for you. We're going to give you a job right now. So those that are less than happy with their employment current employment are going to say, look, I can quit now and tomorrow I'll have another job, or I'll have 2 jobs, or I'll have a better job. So the idea of a overabundance of open and available jobs are allowing people to quit their job and seek something better. And often they do find something better because of the supply and demand issue that we're dealing with right now with jobs and workers. All right, Kelly. The pandemic, which we've gone through, let's hope we're getting through it, over a year ago in the 2020, has caused people to rethink their work-life balance. Some people who decided, hey, I like working remotely, I want to keep working remotely, so they're only interested in jobs that allow them to stay working at home where they're close to their family. Others can't get away from the kids fast enough. They want to get back to the office. That's a conversation for another time. But right now we have lots of people who said our work-life balance, I really would like to be closer to home, would like to work from my home. And so that's what they're defining as a better life for themselves. And that's what they want. That's the kind of jobs people want. All right, Kelly. Another big part of the reason for this, and it's called the Great Resignation, it really could be called the Great Resignation of women. In September of 2021, 309,000 female workers left their labor force. Now, as you know, that's the beginning of school, traditional beginning of school. So like I said, we're talking about the Great Resignation of women. During the pandemic, women have exited the labor force at twice the rate of men. Their participation in the paid labor force right now is lowest it's been in 30 years. So a lot of women are saying they can't find affordable childcare. They can't afford the childcare that is available. Now, I happen to have personal knowledge of the industry of early childhood education. I know that these schools have openings. You know what they don't have? They don't have staff to fit the staffing client ratio that they have to have. So we're back to this problem of it kind of feeds on itself. But the women left the labor force because they can't afford or they can't find affordable childcare. So that's one of these are just 3 of the drivers of what's called the Great Resignation. You read an article about it, there's 10 reasons, and you'll find multiple different angles of it. But to me, these are the 3 greatest reasons why we had what's called the Great Resignation. All right, Kelly.
It's a really good point, Jim. And, it's so funny. I just heard a couple of weeks ago that there's one state, it's a public school system that's actually pulling kids out of high school once they graduate and putting them in the classroom as substitute teachers until they can find certified teachers. So obviously a problem. And when we address the problem, for your personal business, you probably feel like you're a little bit in a hamster wheel, right? It's the endless cycle of I need someone now. Johnny walked out on Tuesday night and I need somebody on Wednesday morning, or I don't have the time to do this, or maybe you say I don't have the budget to do it. I would beg you to think about one thing. The average cost to hire an employee in the United States across all industries is about $4,000 per hire. So you have to ask yourself, well, can I afford not to do this? Right? You need to hire. How many do I need to hire each year? And then where am I going to, or how am I going to meet my demand? When you do this, if you are not sure and you've never done this long term, you can always say, all right, I'm not sure how many I need per year. I barely know how many I need for next week or next quarter. If you can break it down into smaller steps and really try to start to develop what I call a basic recruiting plan, to put some time and put some energy and resources into that, it might help you out a little bit. So what I would recommend when you first start to do this is say, okay, what are the basic elements of a recruiting plan? It's part of your overall business plan, just like your marketing plan. You allocate time and resources into a marketing plan, and the recruiting plan is very similar. And it really does include the basics. If you break it down into 3 buckets, it may seem a little overwhelming, but once again, who can do it? Is it you? Is it your manager? Or is it an internal or an external recruiter? How much is it going to cost me? I don't have any extra money. What's a recruiting budget and what goes into the budget? So that's what we're going to spend a little time talking about right now. What's in the plan? What resources? Where do I get my budget? And then finally, what's my return on my investment? So if we take a peek at traditional recruiting sources, and let me just move my screen around here a little bit. If we take a peek at traditional recruiting sources, we can say, okay, well, I know that employee referrals would be the best way to get employees, and it is. There's no doubt about that. Social media is also very popular right now. Online job sites, and I just list the others: job fairs, internships for both high school and college students. Networking is a great way to get out into your community so that you can actually let other folks know what your value prop is and what you're looking for. Open houses, other businesses, and then finally professional groups and associations. So I've kind of broken this down a little bit. Let me just move this again. Okay. I've kind of broken this down into 3 buckets. The very first thing is employee referrals. So when you're looking at your ideal employee, you can look within your organization and say, wow, I wish I had 5 of him or 3 of her, or whatever the case, right? I would pull that person aside and ask them, who do you know, like you, that might be looking for a job? It's the best and the fastest way to go. And the reason for that is they're acting like a matchmaker for you. They know your culture and you know that they are good workers. And so when you're doing this, the only thing that I would recommend to try to rein it in a little bit is that you explain your value proposition, especially if you have like a 30-second elevator speech that they can memorize, or maybe even a 2-minute drill of your company, so that you can speak to it, you can relay it to them, and make sure that they actually can speak to it as well. It takes a little bit of practice, but generally folks can pick that up pretty quickly. The second thing is online and social media sites. Also a very quick and inexpensive way to build your pipeline and reach a lot of people. So let's just say you have 10 employees, and on average, you might have 300 to 500 connections. Let's just say it's 500 connections for the younger generation, I would say. And they're on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and a million other social media sites. It's very easy to post. If you have 10 employees, they each have 500. Within seconds, you can reach 5,000 people, right? At no cost to you. If you don't have a company Facebook page, this is something that's very low investment. It takes generally about a half an hour to set up a Facebook page through your personal page, and then you can post through that page as well. Posting on LinkedIn is always, quick and easy. Once again, low cost. And then finally, paid advertising. Craigslist is fairly inexpensive. If you're hiring either on a seasonal basis or you're hiring a rotation of workers, 10, 20, 30 or more, I would recommend that you use either ZipRecruiter. Indeed, there's many sites out there. I'm sure most of you have heard of Career Builder. All of them, are wonderful ways to build your pipeline. When you do it, however, just make sure that your job descriptions are written as accurately as you possibly can get. And then, you have to have somebody to manage that site. So when you're managing that site, you're saying, okay, well, how much time does that actually take me to do? So when you first do it, you might see a slew of applicants coming in. And then you're going to have to just say, okay, what am I going to do with the applicants? I'm going to sift through them. I'm going to see who's a good fit. And then I need to call them back and set up either a Zoom interview or an in-person interview. So obviously that takes time. Either you, a manager, or somebody in your organization that might be looking for additional responsibility could possibly do this as well. And then finally, job fairs. With job fairs, the purpose of a job fair is really to, once again, build your pipeline very quickly so that you can avoid the hamster wheel whenever necessary. So let's just say you go to a job fair, you collect 100 names of people that are what you would consider viable candidates. With job fairs, they can be expensive. So, look at the cost, look at the size. You can share booth space with another company. I wouldn't say a competitor necessarily, but somebody who has a synergistic relationship with your business. When you're doing your booth space, once again, it takes a little bit of time and energy to create a visual appeal so that you're attracting people to your booth. And then in addition, free prizes are always, giveaways are always things that attract people to your space. Any type of spin the wheel is also very effective. A spin the wheel with prizes on it, so that basically what you're doing is that you're collecting their name, their contact information, email, phone number, etc. In addition to that, while they're spinning the wheel, and it's a chance to have a little bit of a conversation with them to understand if they would potentially be a good fit for your company. So there's just some, general ideas, but those three, employee referrals and networking, online and social media sites, and job fairs, are definitely the three most popular ways to build your pipeline quickly. And then in addition to that, you can also recruit high school and college candidates. You can do this a number of different ways. You can say, okay, well, I'll offer either paid or unpaid internships, depending on what the level is. So if it's something that's a customer facing or a front desk position and things of that sort, oftentimes they're paid internships. An unpaid internship would just be something that you can offer something else, not just the value of money, but the value of mentoring. So if you have a company where you have a rotation that they can go through and do, spend a day in the life of your marketing department or a marketing director, or sit in on some webinars or some meetings with you as the owner, or actually travel with you and different departments. So they're doing a rotation through your entire organization. And what that does is provide education and knowledge for them. What it does for you then obviously is you get a hire, and you can split this many different ways. You can split it completely unpaid, partially paid for work that they might do over a certain period of time, etc. High school, technical schools, college placement centers, it pretty much speaks for itself. And then finally, open houses. And there's two ways to do this. You can invite potential candidates into your business, either as a group interview. I'm not wild about group interviews, but they do have their purpose. So once again, if you have to hire a large group of people or seasonal, or, let's just say you have an ice cream shop and you need to hire 10 people at one time the day that you open, group interviews can be very productive. And the reason for that is, while you're interviewing one-on-one, bring them all into the same room, have a manager or another employee sit with them and see who stands out, while another person, either the owner or the manager, is meeting with them one-on-one. You'll get a lot of information very quickly. The second way that I've seen this work is also, once again, a day in the life. This is part of the interview process. I've seen this done very effectively across customer service, as well as any type of unskilled manufacturing environments. And so what you're doing is, the first interview might be a Zoom call or a phone call. The second is in person, but part of that in-person interview, if it goes well, ask them ahead of time, prepare them to say, this interview could last up to 3 hours. The first part of it might be just, an overview. It's a one-to-one meeting, but then they're actually putting on your shirt, your company shirt, and they're rolling up their sleeves, and they're literally walking into the job as part of the interview process. It's very effective, and it's a win-win. And the reason for that is because you get to see them in action. Are they a good cultural fit for you? Are they open? Are they friendly? And in return, at the end of that, you can actually sit down with them and say, how did it go? Do you see yourself fitting into this environment? Did you like it? What did you like? What didn't you like? And they're really going to get a good feel over that 2 hours of what the job would entail. At the end of that, then, you can either hire, or you can say, it may not be the best fit for you. And then finally, other would be the bandit signs, as Jim had alluded to before. And you could have, people, you probably have an employee or two that's fairly artistic. You can create and display signs in and around high traffic areas, usually within a 3-mile radius of your company. You can attend community events. Where does your ideal candidate hang out? Are they high school? Are they college? And actually start to network within the group of people that they hang around. And then finally, a philanthropic activity. This is really giving back to your community. Once again, this works really well because not only do other people in the community see you as a group going out into the community, working together, you'll get a really good feel for who your employees are when they're not on the job. And then in addition to that, people that are surrounded by you will look at this and say, you know what, they look like they're having a great time. Where do they work? This looks like it would be a great company to work for. And once again, so it's just a little bit more formal. It's taking it out of the interview, situation. So there's just, some ideas for you. The only other thing I would mention here is when you're out and about, you're at your local Starbucks or coffee shop, or you're at your, local McDonald's or Chick-fil-A. Those people are currently employed. However, you don't want to poach, you don't want to steal employees, nothing like that. But you can always, if they're friendly, if they're outgoing, if there's somebody that you would like to see within your environment, it's okay to have a conversation with them and say, you know what, should things change for you in the future, feel free to give me a call. Here's my business card. I'd love to chat with you. Oftentimes you can find, and if it's not them, it's somebody that they may know. So once again, there's just, some basic ideas for you for, where are the people at? So Jim, back to you.
Oh, thank you very much, Kelly. That was very good information. I want to talk a little bit about non-traditional recruiting sources now, and I'm going to read through some of them, and some of them will dive down a little bit deeper. Candidates with disabilities. There are lots of organizations that help place individuals with disabilities and may be a good fit for your company. Veterans organizations also have outplacement type of resources available that you could talk to and find people. Passive candidates. I'm going to come back to passive candidates a little more in a minute, but as you might guess, there's a whole lot more passive candidates than there are ones, reading the Indeed.com job offerings today. So you might want to talk about ways that you can get into those passive candidates who may not be looking for a job, but may be interested in listening to what you have to offer. Some companies, when they have a position that requires a degree in some specific field, maybe you could broaden that and offer that job to someone with a slightly different degree. I'm not going to go into examples of that. I think you get an idea of what I'm talking about, but maybe you can rethink the degree requirement that you have and loosen it or alter it a little bit to broaden your field of candidates for that job. I flunked retirement. Yeah, I know all about that. There's lots and lots of people in this field, in this particular area, who want to actually work after they retired and decide, hey, I don't like this retirement. I'd like to do something. And those are a great source for candidates for you. Could be that you could find someone with a criminal background that normally you would not encourage to join your company, but you're looking for candidates, and so you need to get an understanding of what their background is and how that might fit in your company. I'm not suggesting you hire a thief to be your, run the cash register. I didn't say that, but you can look at what specific criminal record they have and how that might fit in your company in different kinds of jobs. The other one is different skill sets. If you're traditionally hire a person with certain skills for a job, maybe you can broaden that and bring in other folks who may fit that job as an individual, and you could teach them the job. And as long as they have the basis of skills that is needed to get the job done. I'm going to give you two examples now. One of them is hypothetical. Let's say that you own a manufacturing company and you have a you manufacture widgets of all things. And so you have the Gee Whiz 1000 widget making machine. Your operator has been on that machine for 4 years now. She's a tremendous employee. Of course, you've trained a person to back up that person when she's on vacation or whatever, but nobody's quite runs it quite as good as she does. And you're really happy that she's with your company, except this morning she came in your office and said, you know, I love working here, but my parents are aging and I'm going to move to Nevada to help them. And so now all of a sudden you need somebody for this Gee Whiz 1000 widget making machine. My very first call as the recruiter for that job is to the salesperson who sold us that machine. And I'm going to say, who do you know that knows how to operate this machine, who may be a source for our open position? Now, of course, they can't raid from their clients to help you, but they may be able to say, you know, I heard that so-and-so left last week, and they may be able to help you find a candidate that can operate that machine and fill your job opening. The other one I'm going to tell you is a true story. It's going to date how old I am. Way back before we all carried around these things called cell phones, there was a thing called paging, and everyone carried a pager. And what that means is if someone really wanted to reach you, they would call a local phone number, let's say in York. They'd call a York phone number, and that would transfer to my little pager a telephone number. So then I'd have to go to a phone booth. I don't know, are there even phone booths anymore? Then I'd have to go to a phone booth and call that number on the pager. And that's how we stayed in contact back before the era of ubiquitous cell phones. Anyway, that was a pretty good technical innovation, being able to reach people who weren't in the office. Maybe they were out on the road selling or whatever. You reach them by this pager. Well, there was a problem that if you traveled out of the York area, the pager wouldn't reach you. It only reached you in a certain geographic area of York, Pennsylvania. So a company called Reach Electronics designed a method to use FM broadcast stations to send this signal all across the US. So now I could have a pager and I could call one phone number. And if I was in York, Pennsylvania, I would get the page. If I was in Los Angeles, I would get the page. It was a nationwide way to contact people. Reach Electronics founded this process, and I was doing a retained executive search for them to find a CEO for their company. So they said they needed to be an RF engineer. Of course, I didn't even know what that was. I looked it up. It's radio frequency. There was one college in the US who offered that as a degree. But anyway, I needed to find somebody with a radio frequency degree in engineering who also had the executive maturity to run a company as a CEO. So that was my challenge. Obviously, putting an ad in the Wall Street Journal wasn't going to get me a whole list of phone calls from RF engineers. So I had to start direct recruiting people who may fit this job. Of course, Motorola was the big gorilla at the time for these kind of individuals. So I figured my candidate's probably going to be at Motorola. So I would look on any kind of resume sites or whatever that I'd find anyone worked at Motorola. I didn't care where you worked, but I called them up and I said, here's what I'm looking for. Do you know who in Motorola I need to talk to? Sometimes they wouldn't tell you, sometimes they would. So after a period of talking to 30, 40 people, I finally ended up at the right guy at that Motorola who had an RF engineering degree, who was a vice president, really wanted to run the place. I was able to recruit him to Reach Electronics as the new CEO. So after he'd been on the job for 2 or 3 weeks, he and I went to dinner, and we decided there was probably 3 people in the world who would have been qualified for that job at Reach Electronics. I tell you this story only to say that putting an ad in the newspaper, I know we don't do that anymore, putting an ad on Indeed isn't the only way to source candidates. You can directly go after the candidates that you're seeking for your job just by calling, making contacts, getting referred. Ask everyone you can about who'd be a good fit for this, and just directly go after the person you're seeking for the job. Finally, I would like to say, and Kelly already alluded to this, your next best candidate might be filling the tank next to you at Sheets. Now, are you going to go up to them and, hey, hi, you come to work for me? No, you're not. But there are proper ways to approach people, and you always need to be thinking about, where am I going to get my next candidate? And everything you do has to be focused on, how can I determine my next best candidate? How can I meet more people? And I'm sure you need involved in all sorts of activities that allow you to meet the right people, to have a list of candidates available when you need an opening. At the time you have the opening, that's not the time to start looking for candidates. Hopefully you've build a pool of available candidates. So anyway, passive candidates, they're not looking for a job. You're gonna have to go directly after them. Sometimes they're your best sources for candidates as well. All right, Kelly.
Thanks, Jim. That was a great story. Oh. There we go. All right, so if we take a peek and say, well, how do I get started, right? It's overwhelming. I would start with the basics. I would write your job descriptions if you haven't already done so, and then define your culture. Take a peek and say, okay, what kind of culture do I have, and what kind of culture do I want to create? Oftentimes when I meet with candidates or I meet with current employees, they'll say, I'm staying right where I'm at. I don't have the highest paying job. I don't have the best hours, but I absolutely love the people that I work with. I love my manager, or I love my boss. That's why people stay. So I would beg you to look around in your own culture, go into work, look at the faces, look at the energy level, and determine how you want to create your culture, or if there's anything that you can do to just tweak it a little bit to create a more positive culture. Obviously, we could do, hours on this topic alone, especially during this period of time. There's just been a lot of work done on culture because it is an employee-based market. And so therefore employees, because they have the pick of the litter, or they feel that they do, your culture is extremely important. Define your ideal candidate and then be able to confidently speak to it. I put a note here, beware of including everything in the kitchen sink. A lot of the candidates that I've been speaking with, people that are currently in the market looking, and they've been looking for 2, 3, 4, 5 months. And I'm like, wow, you guys must be just bombarded with, recruiters reaching out and employers reaching out. No, why not? Well, did you ever, and you'll all probably be able to relate to this. You get on LinkedIn or you get online and you see the job description, and the job description is, skills you must have, 10, skills that are nice to have, 10 more, and they don't apply. So I'm like, just even if you have 3 or 4 of them, apply to the position, because most employers realize that there's no candidate that's going to have all 20 skills. If your job description is like that, tweak it and just pick out the 3 to 5 most critical skills that you want or need in your job. I would hate for anyone, I would hate for employers to, say, okay, candidates are out here and they're not applying because they don't meet all the requirements. So just kind of keep that in mind from a candidate perspective. And then finally, I do talk a little bit about culture, and Jim, feel free to hop in as well. I mean, by definition, the elements of a work culture include your purpose, the leadership, being appreciated, a sense of well-being, a sense of opportunity or moving ahead, and success. So obviously this really varies depending on person to person, or oftentimes what generation that you're from. So what motivates a baby boomer may be entirely different than what motivates a Gen Xer. During the interview process, I would include any differentiation that you have versus your competitors, right? So if you offer flexible scheduling or you have project work, I just heard of a company they lay the projects on the table on Monday morning and everyone gets to choose their own project. If you have or offer remote options, and then anything, more traditional, your pay, your benefits, what training you offer, room for advancement, education assistance. I just recently saw that McDonald's, there's a big sign out of McDonald's when I drove by, and they now offer education assistance and other benefits as well. And keep in mind, if you are a smaller company and you don't or can't offer these differentiators, it almost always will go back to culture at that point in time. And then in summary, once again, develop a recruiting plan that fits your company's needs. Include both traditional and non-traditional recruiting sources. Just take a few of each, doesn't have to be anything elaborate to get started. You want to track the costs that are associated with each source, and then identify point people within your organization that can be responsible for these particular jobs. And this could be, if you have 5 employees, kind of think of it like if you have kids and at the beginning of the week, you put their chores on the kitchen counter or hang it up on the refrigerator. It's the same type of thing. So you can say, okay, well, this employee is really good at Facebook and Twitter, and this employee is really good at, has some creative flair for maybe some signs. Maybe another employee is very communicative or has a higher emotional IQ, more maturity than the rest of, than somebody else. They would be people that would be really good to help employ to do your networking and your job fairs, because they're going to be able to confidently speak to the position. And then implement the plan and track the results. You can do this just on a basic spreadsheet. If you, once again, hire a lot of employees over a short period of time, I would employ an applicant tracking system or recruiting software. And there are many. I know Workday and Taleo, they're very popular, but there are many. And then revise the plan as needed. So identify at the end of each quarter what worked and what didn't. Justify your cost and your source per candidate. And once again, the average cost to source and onboard is $4,000. That depends on the industry. The range is anywhere between $2,000 and $9,000. And once again, it just depends on the industry and the type of employee and qualifications. And then finally, the costs include any sourcing or interviewing that anyone internally did or any vendors that you hired, the onboarding and training. And once you have those costs, you'll be able to figure out just how much it costs you to onboard candidates. So train, onboard, hire, recruit, right? So that's pretty much it from my end. Jim, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, we've, I do want to mention that this is a huge topic. We've covered just the highlights in the last 40 minutes or 45 minutes. So we would want to answer your questions as best we can and drill down on any particular areas that you'd like to know more about or anything we didn't cover. Again, it's a huge topic, and we just did a brief summary of it. So thank you for attending, and let us know in the chat what your questions might be.
I'm changing, this is Andy. I'm changing the view to hopefully gallery here.
Hello.
So that everyone is enabled. You should be able to speak right now. So we're sort of in a open forum.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, am I the only one on?
No,
Everybody should be enabled.
you're the only one I see, but there are 10 on.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got to get the right view set up here. Nope. Kelly, why don't you stop the close your
share.
scan, or your share rather. Let's see how
There you
that
go.
helps. Should have a gallery view. Gallery.
I don't know where to put my laptop here.
So Sarah says it doesn't give me an option. Hold on a second. I just lost it. Wait a minute.
Okay, I'm just.
So in the
working on
very
it. Just like
beginning, it said you could join as a panelist or as an attendee, and it doesn't give them an option to have their camera on.
Oh. Well, I'll turn my
Okay.
camera off.
I think I've got everybody promoted here.
We just have you at the moment, Andy.
Oh, I see
Yeah,
Sarah. Hi,
it looks
Sarah.
like you have to join as a panelist if you want to.
Yeah, that's, I'm trying to promote everyone to panelists so that they have an opportunity to speak. It seems to be slow to do that. Hang on. Now we check view. Gallery view. Attendee should be gallery view. I found a new button.
Yay.
Hopefully, everybody is able to talk at this point. So for questions and discussion,
Well, I was very interested in attending this webinar because I just started a small business this year, and it is an HR consulting business. And I wanted to get, and I know the one person I was talking to, actually a friend of mine who has a small business, and he is desperately looking for people. And I was hoping that this webinar would prove advantageous to give him some suggestions on how to find people. And he doesn't offer health insurance. So, and he says nobody wants to work. So do you have any other suggestions on how to, and he has a lawn cutting business. So I was just wondering if you have any idea as how to attract people who want to work. I was thinking of retirees, like you had already mentioned, who wants to get out and get some exercise, get some fresh air. It is a physical job. Right now, the hours are long. Obviously, you're working in the elements. And I was also thinking that possibly working with, again, talking to Jim and you know, back in the day, we had a VOTEC and they had like horticulture as a topic, a subject. And I thought maybe tapping into a school to offer, you know, work to, you know, high school students would also be an option. But do you have anything else that would be an
Yes.
option too?
Yeah. So a lot of the lawn cutting businesses that I know, a lot of the service businesses that I know, not only do they hire students, but they also hire teachers during the summer, right? So his busy time would be the summer. So, you know, that's just really a matter of forming relationships with the school districts and the individual schools. They can walk right in. I don't know if you can anymore or not, but at least walking in or having a phone conversation, and they can post right within the school. But he can hit up, you know, 20 or 30 high schools in the area. But really it's about forming that relationship with either the principal or the superintendent so that they're top of mind.
Okay.
So not only does he form the relationship or just have an initial phone call, but then developing the relationship further so that it's an ongoing type thing, because this is going to be every year. What does he do during the winter? Does he offer snow removal and such?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Pest control. Let me quick go to his website while we're on. And let's see here, pest control. Lawn service, snow removal. That's basically it. Leaf removal, lawn treatments.
How does pest control play into those other things? It seems like an outlier.
Mice, I guess the pest that's in your
No,
ground.
I'm familiar with pest control. I'm saying as from lawn services to pest control, you have to have certain certifications if you're putting down poisons and things. Like most people have to have an understanding of pest control before you can actually
Okay.
work in pest control.
Okay.
That wouldn't be
Well-
something you would want to hire high school students for.
Well, that's true. It would be, you know, specific to the person. If you're underage, then obviously then the pest control wouldn't be an option. But the
So is
lawn
he
mowing,
looking for people in both aspects, or like is the pest control covered and then he's just looking for?
he was talking just overall, nobody wants to work, and he narrowed it down to in his mind, he's a little short-sighted. In his mind, that I don't offer benefits, so and nobody wants to work. And I'm trying to convince him of other places to look. So I was hoping that, like I was saying, that this get together would help, you know, like your option, Kelly, is to look at schools and teachers during the summer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and develop those relationships. What is he currently doing? Do you know, to try to recruit talent?
Honestly, we had a he was very angry about it. So we had a very short conversation, and I'm just trying to be a good doobie and a good friend to, you know, kind of like, you know, push him along. I mean, he's giving up work because of low staff.
Yeah, it's a common problem right now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So he's just angry overall, and I think he's very short-sighted, and I just really can't get him to open up at this point in time. But I thought maybe if just in idle conversation, I can say, hey, you know, have you ever thought of X, Y, and Z, and get him talking. So I would have more information to help him.
Yeah, I have, go ahead.
There are numerous places to go for candidates. Schools is a good one.
Mhm.
The pastorate churches tend to know sometimes people who are looking for work. All of the ways we've talked about here to find candidates could be applicable to him. I would caution him, though, once you get a candidate and you're displaying this negative attitude, that's going to get picked up almost immediately, and that candidate will go across the street in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So you probably need to have a little chat with him about how he's coming across to potential candidates. And then there's all kinds of, you got to network, you got to meet people.
Yeah.
Everybody you meet, hey, do you know anybody? Who do you know? People with teenage children, older teens, you know nobody looking for a job.
Mhm.
You just got to network and do everything you can think of to put yourself in front of people who may know someone who may be looking.
Yeah.
I would want to
even
know
thinking
what
about
his marketing
veterans.
sources are and what
I'm
his
sorry?
marketing looks like. I would want to know what his marketing sources are, what his marketing looked like, and who he was looking to gear. Because gearing different demographics, your marketing is going to look different. So if you're
Mhm.
looking to gear high school students, your marketing to high school students is going to look one way. Your marketing to retired people is going to look another way. And then
Mhm.
where you're putting those marketing sources. The other thing that came to mind is if it's a seasonal thing, I would want to pay a bonus at the end of the summer. If somebody made it to the end of the summer and did all of their grass cutting, I would want to pay a bonus, and then I would pay a bonus if they returned the following year. That's what I would do.
Yeah, and he can also incentivize, any current employees that he has, he can offer a referral bonus to them. So let's just say somebody comes on board, and these bonuses are not inexpensive, I will say that, but in lieu of not being able to offer benefits and for the sake of growing his or scaling his business, I see these bonuses anywhere between $600 and $3,000 for one employee, and it's usually paid out over the course of a year. So if the candidate or if the employee comes on board, the person who referred the candidate gets, let's say, $500 over the course of 4 quarters.
Mhm.
But it's less expensive than the cost of him in this hamster wheel. that we
Yeah,
talked
or
about.
not doing
No, I
business
agree.
at all, as it sounds like. he's
Yeah,
doing.
and I would also, just to hop on Jim's comment, if he is not, if he cannot project a positive attitude about, maybe it's him rather than nobody wanting to work. Because if he's projecting that attitude, people are not going to choose it. Coming to work every day is hard enough, but when you come to work, you want to make sure that you're coming to work for somebody that is positive, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so if he can't project that in his own environment, he can also hire a contract recruiter on a part-time basis. And that person can actually go out and recruit for him.
Mhm.
And then he pays them by the hour or by hire.
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to work him in that manner. I spent over 30 years in HR. I've touched everything imaginable. So I'm trying to get him to kind of like open up and, I mean, he was snappy at me when I was trying to talk to him on the phone. And we're friends. So I can just imagine what he's doing to,
Yeah,
potential applicants.
yeah.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question too? The career link used to be a big source of people in unemployment.
Mhm.
I don't hear that anymore. I'm just wondering, what kind of a viable source of people they can be.
I don't know the answer.
I don't either. I'm not familiar enough with them.
Okay, anything else? I mean, if not, there's no reason we have to sit and stare at each other. Everyone looks good, but on the other hand, everybody has schedules to do too.
Mhm.
So anything, Kelly or Jim, any kind of wrap up you'd like to make?
I would just like to thank everyone. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season, and it was great thank you for spending your lunch hour with me today, and Jim and Andy.
Yes, thank you for attending. Hopefully we've given you some tidbits of information to help in your recruiting process. And I would especially like to thank Kelly for helping present today. So thank you, Kelly. You did a good job.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.